Hi, I'm Mike from Creative in Guernsey. A question I often get asked on a lot of my courses is what's the best lens to buy for portraits? And there's a huge array of lenses out there, everything from a pro grade 70 to 200 right down to something you could pick up at a garage sale for next to nothing. And we're going to use quite a range of these lenses and we're going to see what kind of pictures we can get. Do you really need to spend thousands of pounds on a lens, or can you get some really decent pictures with something that costs a fraction of the price? We're going to photograph Eden with all the lenses and let's see what we get. Choosing lenses can be a bit of a minefield. There's lots of different types. Canon, for example, have EF and EFS lenses, Nikon DX and FX lenses. Some of these are for full frame cameras and some of them for crop sensor cameras. Let's have a quick look at that. You can see the difference in sensor size between the Canon 5D on the right and the 70D on the left. The 5D has a much bigger sensor, and generally the bigger the sensor, the better quality of the picture. But does this matter? It's better to have a larger sensor in some ways, in that it records more information, so you get a lot more information to work with in post-processing. But generally speaking, the way we consume our media nowadays, a lot of it's Facebook and on our phones, so the pictures are quite small. And also, when you look at a picture, can you actually tell if it was taken by a Canon, a Nikon, a Fuji, an Olympus? Probably not. And again, the first thing you look at when you see a picture, are you thinking, how many megapixels is that? Again, probably not. We tend to look at a picture and we make a decision fairly instantly whether we like it or not. If we do, we keep looking at it. If we don't, we move on. This lens, for example, is a 50mm. It's a full frame lens and it's on a full frame camera. But there are advantages to using crop sensored cameras with these lenses. We've got a crop sensor camera here and if we put the 50mm lens on the crop sensor camera on the Nikon, the 50mm becomes the equivalent of a 75mm lens. And also there are other advantages. Because the sensor's only using the very middle part of the lens, the pictures can be sharper all the way across, which is a bonus. The first lens we're going to use is this old 35-80, which is worth next to nothing. It's quite plasticky, it's quite an old lens. Now, it hasn't got a lens hood. Now, I'd always recommend using a lens hood if you have one. This 50mm lens we were looking at before has got a lens hood. They're good for two things. Firstly, they protect the lens if you bash it at all. They can help to protect the lens getting knocked or scratched. And secondly, they are good for contrast and saturation. Now, light travels in straight lines, and if you've got your lens hood on, the light will travel in straight lines down through to the sensor and you'll get a nice picture. If you take it off or don't use it, the light will come in from all different angles and it'll make your picture look less saturated and less sharp, and it just won't look as good. You can make a lens, you can make a very expensive lens look very ordinary if you don't use your lens hood. Next up, we've got an 18 to 55. This is a fairly standard kit lens that comes with a lot of budget DSLRs, and it's not too bad, but the lens is made of sort of plastic more than glass, so the quality isn't brilliant. Next up, we've got a macro lens. This is a 60mm macro lens. They're normally used for shooting things close up, like insects, for example, but they also make really good portrait lenses. Now, this one's 60mm, but I'm using it on our crop sensor camera, so it's the equivalent to about 90mm, which is a nice length for portrait. Next up is the 85mm. This is a f1.8. It's a fantastic lens for portrait, fixed focal length, and it's one of my favourites. Next up, we've got a Tamron. This is a Tamron 55 to 200. Again, this is a cracking lens for portraits. We're going to use this one at the longer end, at the 200 ends. This next lens is quite long. It's a 28 to 300, so it's a very wide range. And again, we're going to use this one just at the longer end again. I'll show you what it looks like at 100, 200 and 300. Now, an important thing to remember with these lenses is, when you've got a zoom lens, is not to just stand lazily and zoom in and out. The best thing to do is to pick your focal length, say for this one 200 for example, set your focal length at 200mm and then move your feet. That way you'll get used to the look the lens gives you at 200mm. When using long lenses like the 28-300, it's crucial you use good technique. With this lens, for example, we can use it at 300mm and our subject even is going to be quite far away. And any slight movement here is going to be magnified by the time we get to our subject. If you imagine you're playing golf, for example, and you're hitting the ball, if you're a couple of inches out when you hit the ball, by the time it gets to the flag, it's going to be feet away. So just think of it like that. The best way to take a picture is to start with your stance. Start with your feet about shoulders width apart. Then, taking your camera in your right hand with your finger over the button, cup the lens with your left hand, and then put the camera up to your eye. And you can move your elbows in towards your body, and then if you can turn sideways, you can see the camera's locked in nicely there. We've got our elbows close to our body and the lens is held nicely. It's nice and stable. And when you take the shot with the shutter, nice gentle press, don't snatch at it. There's always a great debate about who makes the best camera equipment, Canon and Nikon for example. There's always a little bit of banter about who makes the best. What I'm going to do for the last picture is I'm going to take a photo of Eden using the Canon and the Nikon, and there's exactly the same lenses. They're both full frame cameras, both got 70s 200 2.8, and we're going to see at the end, can you really tell the difference whether it's a Canon and Nikon that took the picture just by looking at the photo? Hi, I'm Mike from Creative in Guernsey, and today we're going to show you a lot of pictures. Loads of pictures.
Bloody hell, Mike! It's a gym.
That's it, where the button is.
Oh, I always said the bottom was.
Right, okay, right, hold that. And today we're going to be looking at lenses. Okay, right, so, oh, where's he gone? Ah, sound.
Surfboard.